Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Gartner webinar. Find out where the metaverse could take your enterprise. Now, I'd like to welcome Gartner Vice President Analyst Marty Resnick. Marty, thanks for joining us. And now I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thanks, Jillian. So what we're going to talk about today, as Jillian had mentioned, is finding out where the metaverse is going to take us. And somebody had sent me this cartoon. I don't remember who it is, but it's by Tom Fishburne that I thought was um, funny, coming from Gartner and looking at the Gartner hype cycle, but also the metaverse in general. And as we have a lot of conversations with clients, whether they're vendors providing metaverse services or retail industry looking at what they should be doing with the metaverse, or other industries for that matter, or enterprises trying to decide what they should be doing with the metaverse, they're hearing a lot of voices in their heads as far as what the metaverse really is and what they should be doing with it, and what's reality and what's not reality, which is a real interesting question when it comes to the metaverse. That's all about virtual realities and digital realities and physical realities, etc. But the idea, if you know our metaverse or our hype cycle, excuse me, if you go all the way to the left, that's kind of that innovation trigger, and where everybody says, "Hey, this could be really cool." It's kind of a cool term. It sounds really neat. We've heard about it for the last 20 years because it's been in science fiction and, for example, with Neil Stephenson's Snow Crash and Ready Player One and stuff. This stuff sounds pretty cool. And then we get to that point where we start to say, well, I don't really understand what it is, because everybody I talk to kind of has a different definition, and everybody's kind of going different directions. And now I'm trying to figure out, is this the metaverse? Is that the metaverse? Who should I be listening to, and what should I believe? But in the end, I have this fear of missing out because I think it's going to make my company rich, and it's going to have new business models and operating models, and everything's going to be great in the metaverse. And then we kind of get to, well, we've started rolling out these metaverse ideas. We'll talk about NFTs in just a few. But why isn't that making us rich right away? Why hasn't that really transformed our business within seconds? And then you get to that point where you're kind of, well, sunk cost. I've invested so much already. We might as well keep going with it, to the point where the employees might get a little exasperated and say, do we really have to have this another in the metaverse? And so that's really kind of where we're at with the metaverse conversation right now. We're a little bit all over the place. And so my goal here is to really rein us back in and say, let's get a clear definition of what we mean by metaverse, as clear as possible, so that when you're having these conversations with your employees, your suppliers, your vendors, your customers, et cetera, all your stakeholders, we're all kind of talking about the same thing. And then what we'd like to do is look at some use cases and examples of what people are doing today, and how they're using the metaverse or planning to use the metaverse to meet business outcomes in an enterprise sense. And then what are some of the examples that may be transitioning, because we're already doing augmented reality and virtual reality. So how is this different? And so we're going to talk about all those things today. But to kick us off, I'm going to go ahead and give us our first polling question. And Jillian will explain how this is kind of going to work, but I'll leave this on the screen. But the polling question is, what is your organization's plans in terms of the metaverse? Either you A, have no interest, B, it's on your tech radar. Hopefully you're doing a tech radar, but you have no action planned at this time. It's in our medium and long-term planning. In the short term, we're actively experimenting with it, or we've already invested and deployed. So I'll leave this poll open just for a minute or two.
Thank you, Marty. And I can just jump in here and further explain. So, for anyone that wants to submit a response to the poll, we'd like to hear what you're thinking. You can find the poll under the Vote tab right below the video player and submit your answer. And when the poll is closed, everyone will see the end result.
Thanks. And so we'll leave this open just for a couple minutes, but I will move on in a few seconds, and we'll come back to it. But just wanted to give everybody an update so far. It looks like B seems to be the majority, that it's on the radar. Glad to hear that we've got so many tech radars going on, but it's on the radar, but no action planned as of now. So, and that's at about 54, been hovering around 54, 55%. So that's really interesting. Um, so let's go ahead and move forward, and then we'll check on some of the results in just a few. So let's define that metaverse. Let's say, what do we really mean by the metaverse? And I know there's a lot of different definitions out there, so I'm going to give you the kind of the Gartner view of the metaverse world. Metaverse is a really busy, crowded environment, and if you look at all of these logos, and this is going to increase to grow over the next couple of years, everybody seems to be a player in the metaverse, or they say they have some sort of offering in the metaverse, or they're working on some sort of investment in the metaverse. And so, because it's a busy, crowded environment, what we want to be able to say is, okay, well, who really are the players in the metaverse? What does it really mean? What are the services that we expect them to be offering, and how do we plan on participating within this metaverse? So, every one of those tech vendors, for example, as we talked about, there's a lot of different definitions of the metaverse, have their own version of the metaverse. And that's what makes it really difficult. So, for example, when Meta comes forward and says, this is how we see the metaverse, and this is our view of the metaverse world, then of course we all lean towards that and say, okay, well, this must be what the metaverse means. But then another vendor, let's say Microsoft, comes out and says, okay, well, here's our layers of the metaverse, and here's what we're thinking about the metaverse is, and here's how we're enabling you. And then you've got another vendor, let's say a virtual events vendor, saying, well, wait, hold up. This is what we're talking about. And so what we want to really do is just, again, come up with maybe just common definition or the common thinking around what the metaverse really is. So as you're talking to all these exciting suppliers and vendors and stakeholders, et cetera, we're all kind of speaking the same language a little bit there. So this is Gartner's definition of the metaverse, and I'm not going to go ahead and read this whole slide to you. And we have this in our "What is a Metaverse" research that you can access. But overall, the metaverse is this collective virtual shared space. It's created by this convergence of virtually enhanced physical and digital reality and physically persistent virtual spaces. So that is clear as mud, right? That's basically, that could be anything. We talk about this blur between physical and digital, and sometimes we hear the term phygital, right? But overall, the metaverse is kind of a broad term because we're really including a lot in it as this market really shapes itself out.